And also on these mission trips, I experienced physically seeing miracles, and that changed me forever.
Tell me a few of the ones that like pop up to your memory first.
I'll retell one that really sticks out. This was in Africa, and we saw the most miracles in Africa, which to me just makes sense because we were so remote.
Mm-hmm.
We stayed in a tent for that whole month.
Did you
So this
sleep on the
wasn't
floor or on a cot?
on the floor.
Oh man.
Like, we had all of our luggage. It was me and 2 other girls in a normal size tent, and we would have to fit all of our luggage around the outsides of the tent, and then we were, like, sardined in there all night. Like, this is not a city in Africa, but we were gonna go to an even more remote village. It was gonna be a little bit of a drive, and we were told that we were going there because there was a known witch doctor. Hi, friends, and welcome to Echoes of Impact. I'm Briana.
And I'm Cherise. We're so glad you're here with us.
On this podcast, we're dedicated to sharing real stories of how God shows up in life's challenges, how he can grow us, shape us, and use our experiences for something bigger.
So if you love Jesus and you want to walk more boldly in your purpose, you're in the right place.
Let's do this.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Echoes of Impact. I'm Cherise.
And I'm Briana.
And today we have something a little special for you guys. It's going to be a little different. A lot of the times we hop on here and we are interviewing other women with their purpose stories and hearing about them. Today we are not going to interview a guest. I actually get the opportunity to interview Briana, which is something we haven't been able to do yet. And I'm very excited for it. Dun, dun, dun. Flipping the script a little bit. We just are going to hear about her faith story and her purpose today. So, Briana, we like to start every episode by asking our guests,
Oh, no.
what does living out your purpose mean to you?
Oh, now I'm feeling put on the spot. We ask everybody that question. I should have known that was coming. I've really enjoyed the variety of answers that
Mhm.
we receive by asking this. We tell everybody, like, there's no right or wrong answer. So it's been really fun to just hear. And also, no one has really had the same exact answer. Everyone says it in a little different way, which is so fun. But I would say living out your purpose, first of all, it is to know God and to love him, and then to love others through that, right? So
Mm.
it's like know and love God and love and serve others. I think that's like a baseline for purpose. But I will say, I think sometimes as Christians, we can kind of stop there. And I do believe that God created each of us on purpose and for a purpose, and that our story plays into that, our personality traits
Yeah.
play into that, the passions that he puts in our hearts, the desires that he gives us can all play almost like a big puzzle, right? With little puzzle pieces that fit together. And with that said, though, even though it can feel like this thing that you're trying to like figure out or go and find, I also want to make the point that purpose is actually found in the day to day and the ordinary, paying attention to those passions, but it's learning to just hear from God better. And
Mm.
so if God is putting a friend in your heart and you reach out just to check in on them, like, that is part of your purpose. And if you're like, why is this certain people group or why is a certain cause really tugging on my heartstrings? And if you look into just as simple as how might I be able to volunteer in a small way there?
Mhm.
Like, that is your purpose. And it becomes more of like a direction. It's purpose can be like a compass to our lives. And the more that we practice listening to God and going towards that, like down that path, if you will, that we will discover our purpose in a more like unique way to each of us as well.
I love that answer. What a heart, what the beating heart of everything we do is right there. Yeah, I really feel
True.
like I think it's one of our favorite things is to see when we hear people's stories. I think we love connecting the dots and seeing how God starts at the beginning and just weaves
Mhm.
everything together. So With
So
that in
true.
mind, let's
Oh
start at
boy.
the beginning. Oh boy. How were you raised and what did faith look like for you growing up?
Okay. Well, so I would say in general, I was raised in a Christian home. We went to a few different churches, but for the majority of my life, my early years, I went to a Lutheran church that was associated with a Lutheran private school.
Hmm.
And it was a very small school. I was raised in a town of 5,000 people. And so when I went to the Lutheran school, there was only 6 people in my grade, 3 girls and 3 boys. And the
Wow.
school was so small that for 3 of the years that I was there, I had the same teacher. And there was 2 grades in our room. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that just paints the picture for
Mhm.
like how small, almost like old-timey it was. And I do wanna give credit though, I did go through some of the traditional. I went through catechism through the Lutheran church. I was confirmed, that's what it's called. I went through
What was that like?
confirmation.
What
That's
does
what
that
I
entail?
yeah.
Because sometimes I go to, like, older
Yeah.
churches, and I'm always surprised about their traditions and things they do.
Yeah, some of it's fuzzy, but I do remember at least for a year you attend weekly classes, and I
Mm.
believe that it's learning about not only faith, but also the Lutheran, right, faith and
Mhm.
traditions, and I also remember there was always, like, memory verses associated with it, and also learning things like gosh, I'm gonna, like, butcher the words. It's like the Lord's Creed or the
That
Apostles' Creed.
yeah.
The Apostles' Creed, but there was, like, a whole list of things like that, that
Mhm.
you recite in church services and for special events and things like that. So a lot of memorization, a lot of learning, and then at the Lutheran school, there was a lot of also memorization, and we played games like I don't remember what the name of the game was, but our teacher would say, John 1:8, and, like, the person that could get there the fastest wins, right?
Yes.
And so, while I don't align totally, like, nothing wrong with people who are Lutheran, but I don't necessarily I don't find myself in a Lutheran church today, so I don't maybe align with everything. I do love that I had that foundation of faith in general and also just knowledge of the Bible and even knowing where books of the Bible are, like, I still attribute that to the hours and hours that we played Where is Ecclesiastics? So
I love that. So
Mm.
at what point did it become real to you who Jesus was? Because I think we all have that
Yeah.
moment when our in our faith. Was that when you were young or was that a little bit later?
So I'm a singer, and I sang quite a bit growing up in choirs and even into college, and there was a good family friend who was starting a contemporary service at a traditional church, right?
Oh
And it was
boy.
a big deal in a small town. I believe it was a Methodist church. And she asked me to sing for that. And so that was my first experience with praise and worship. And I just
Mm.
remember being like, this feels different. I like this, right? And so, and there might have been 10 people at the service. It wasn't like some big mega church thing. It was like we were almost doing something, what's the right word? Not risky, but scandalous almost like
Yeah.
the non-traditional service at very traditional church. And I loved being a part of that. And then into high school, I started going to a church in Oak Grove called New Life Assembly of God. And if you know anything about the Assembly of God, that's very different than Lutheran in a
Mm.
lot of ways. And
Yes.
so that's where I was really introduced to just different ways of expressing your love for God and learning about Him, and also just learning about Holy Spirit and what that could look like. And during that time, I ended up doing 3 overseas mission trips. And
So when you were
so
in high school age, about
when I was in high
16 or so?
school, yeah, I was like 15, 16, 17.
Mhm.
And I look back, I cannot believe that my parents let me. So again, very small town, like we weren't progressive at all, very traditional. And I would say my parents were. they weren't necessarily helicopter parents, but they were pretty strict.
Yeah.
Um, and so for them to allow this, I remember the very first trip I took, them dropping me off at the airport, and my everyone's bawling. My mom's bawling, my dad's crying, I'm crying, and it's like, "What am I doing?" And they tell me to this day, like, when you kept walking, right, on your own, like, they thought to themselves, "What did we just do? We are putting her on a plane to go to another country with people we don't know." But I'm so thankful that they allowed me to do that because that was probably the most foundational part of my faith. So it was with a group called Teen Mania out of Texas. They don't exist anymore, but it was month-long mission trips. So
Wow.
every summer of high school, I spent 1 month in Peru, a month in Botswana, Africa, and a month in Thailand.
So those were the 3 different summers in high school?
Yeah, was
Okay.
those different countries
Wow.
doing mission trips with strangers from all
Mhm.
around the US. So I never went with anyone I knew. I was on my own, shipped to Texas, and we had training. We had,
Man.
like, several days of training before they would then ship us off. And it was so funny. I mean, I was, 15, 16, 17, I think, and our leaders, right? Like, it'd be like a team lead was, like, 21.
Yes.
And I think back to that time, and I'm like, my gosh, that was kinda crazy,
You
you
gotta
know?
make friends fast in those
Yeah, but also,
groups.
like, would you trust a 21-year-old with your child across seas? I don't know. Was it different times? I'm not sure. But it was there that I really learned about a personal relationship with God. So I had learned some foundational things at the Lutheran school, where Bible chapters are, books, and what Bible stories were. Like, I had learned some of those things, but it was on the mission trips. It was a mandatory hour quiet time that
Mhm.
everybody had at the same time. So it was like you got up, you had breakfast, and then everybody had 1 hour that they were supposed to have what they called a quiet time. So that was really the first time that I learned about just being in the Bible on my own and praying and journaling and things like that. And also on these mission trips, right? Learning praying out loud, praying for people, and I experienced physically seeing miracles,
Tell me a
and
few.
that
Tell me a few that
changed me forever.
tell me a few of the ones that, like, pop up to your memory first.
Yeah, I feel like I might have told this story on another podcast, but nobody probably will remember that or have listened. So I'll retell one that really sticks out. This was in Africa, and we saw the most miracles in Africa, which to me just makes sense because we were so remote.
Mhm.
We stayed in a tent for that whole month.
Did you
So this
sleep on the
wasn't
floor or on a cot?
on the floor.
Oh, man.
Like, we had all of our luggage. It was me and 2 other girls in a normal size tent, and we would have to fit all of our luggage around the outsides of the tent, and then we were, like, sardined in there. And Africa, if you know anything about the desert, at night, it's actually freezing. And so it's like during the day, you're scorched, and then at night, it's freezing. So we would
Mm.
just like be snuggling, smashed against
Aw.
each other all night. And a funny story, real quick, a little rabbit trail is that one night we woke up to hearing scratching under our tent. And so we kinda all wake each other up. We're like, "Do you guys hear that? What is that?" And so it was loud enough that we got out of our tent and we lift up the tent to see what's going on, and our tent was made on a termite village.
Oh, no.
And so it was eating through the bottom of our tent. So it was like middle of the night. We got flashlights. There's no other street lights or anything. We got our flashlights out. We're having to move camp. So get all of our stuff out,
Oh,
move our
no.
tent ourselves. Like, we're totally on our own. So that's kind of the funny story. The not so funny story was that one of the days we were already in a remote place to begin with. Like, this is not a city in Africa, but we were going to go to an even more remote village. It was gonna be a little bit of a drive, and we were told that we were going there because there was a known witch doctor,
Mhm.
and that was kind of my first, like, "What witch doctor? What in the world?" And so we go to this village, and I just remember we went to where the witch doctor lived, and it stuck out because it was kinda like he had a bigger house, if you will. They were all like the huts that you imagine, like straw, mud. That literally was what was there, but his area was bigger and it had like a fence around it as well. So we go up there and we're trying to figure out what's going on. There's people lined up or like around his fence, and so we're using translators and trying to talk to the locals there. And somebody comes up to us and we're like, "Hey, we just wanted to talk to whatever his name is." It was the witch doctor. And the person said, "The devil told him you guys are coming, and so he is not here."
He just
And
left.
he left. And we're like, "What? What?" And so all these people lined up, but then there was almost like rooms, but all of this is open air, okay? Like
Mhm.
there's no actual building. But so there was almost like these rooms with kind of cots in them that sick people were. And so because he wasn't there, apparently we just helped ourselves onto his property. Looking back, it's a little sketch, but we just like went in and we started asking people if we could pray for him.
Mhm.
And we started telling them, like, you're believing in this, and we are here to tell you about something else. And so the people would have intestines wrapped around areas of their body. And we started
Mm.
asking the people questions, and people had traveled miles and miles and miles away. And they had spent their life savings to try to heal or save a loved one. And kind of the way that that operates is you spend money on literal pig intestines, and they would wrap that around the area that they thought you needed healed. And then that was it.
And then
This place
hope
didn't
for the
there's
best.
not yeah, there's, like, not IVs, there's not
Yeah.
modern medicine, like, it's not a hospital, right? Like,
Essentially like witchcraft kind of.
it really was,
Yeah.
yeah, and, uh, and so it was there that we saw a couple healings, one of them being a blind man seeing, which I still try to talk myself out of to this day.
Mm.
Did that really happen? Am I crazy? Could I make that up? Which I think is just our human brain trying to figure
Rationalized.
that out. Yeah. But yeah, there was legit miracles, but these people hadn't even heard of Jesus. Like it really was that remote of a village that I believe God works in that way. I mean, he can work in that way anywhere,
Mhm.
right? Like he's capable, but it makes sense to me now that he had to do that in those places who were truly putting their faith in other gods, other, the witchcraft and whatever to show that he was real.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. When you so we all have these experiences when we're growing up. Not all. I should rephrase that. A lot of the times, people that grew up in the church will have experiences where they will go into missions trips or they
Mhm.
will go to summer camp and then they'll have this God encounter and be like, wow,
Mhm.
God is so big. He is so amazing. Look at all these miracles. And then they come home and it can get forgotten pretty quickly. Did you
Yeah,
experience that like most people?
I did.
Yeah.
It's easy to be on like a Jesus high when
Hmm.
literally that's all we were doing.
Yeah.
And it was all I was surrounded by,
But it did give
was
you perspective,
other
probably.
people. It gave me a foundation and a
Hmm.
perspective that like I could never run too far
Hmm.
because I had seen what I had seen and I
Exactly.
know how real that was.
Hmm.
But I will say during that time, like in high school and then into college, I think that I in some ways was living a double life.
Mm.
And it was I wasn't ever really a partier or anything like that, but my what do you call that? Like my fall, my sin, my
Yeah. Your crutch, your
whatever you want to say.
downfall, your
The thing that would trip me up
Mhm.
was guys.
Mm.
And maybe for this sake of being respectful to my parents, like they were going through things that were really hard for our family and was really hard for me. And so high school they were really hard years. I did not like high school. I wanted to get away as much as possible.
Mhm.
And I was searching for attention. And unfortunately, I found that in men. And so that was kind of always my downfall, if you will, that my heart was always, like, in a good place. I cared about people from a really young age and wanted
Mm.
to step in and physically do things, like, that was always a part of me, and I love Jesus, and I was going to church that whole time, but I also had a foot over
Yeah.
here in the world, if you will, not quite living the way that I knew he wanted me to, and I always kind of battled that.
I think that there's something really special and something special just about the way God made the heart of a woman to want to be loved and be connected because it comes
Mhm.
from a
A good
vulnerable,
place.
innocent place to be like,
Mhm.
I want to connect with somebody and I want to be loved. It's
Mhm.
in the beginning we see in Genesis when Eve eats the apple and the fall happens, the curse that God puts on Eve is and the desire shall be for your husband. And a lot of people will interpret that verse as saying the desire there means that like your desire is to overtake him or to overcome him or be on top of him. But some other translations that I really like say that her desire is to be like loved by him. It's almost like the core
Mm.
desire of our heart is to be loved and cherished. And so when we come in really hard times, especially in the formative years, when we're so
Mhm.
vulnerable, when our hearts are like able to be broken so quickly, we find ourselves in these relationships where we're giving 100%.
Mhm.
And it's what our friend says that like being vulnerable is just opening yourself up to hurt, which really
Mhm.
stinks. But I think it's a hard thing to walk through, but like praise be the glory of God, because now you're with Phil, right? So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about how you came from high school into college and how you and Phil met and how that all worked out.
I heard somebody say recently on our I think it was on our podcast, that God kinda had them on a short leash.
Mhm.
Do you remember hearing that?
I do
Anyway,
I think I've heard that, but I don't remember who said it.
they said that. Somebody said that recently, and it kinda resonated with me because even when I did kinda have one foot in one place and one foot the other, I was never far from God, and I think I kinda always knew, uh, like, a calling on my life, like, or, like, I knew yeah, don't know how else to put that. I also, before I move forward, wanna say that I had a grandma who was so instrumental to my faith and also just showing me in flesh and blood what being like Jesus was actually like.
Mm.
So her name was Grandma Boots,
Aw.
and I know, so cute. The story is her real name is Eula May, and the story is that she had one of the first pair of physical boots, like cowboy boots, and somebody was like, "Look, boots," and it stuck. And so until the day she died, she was known as Bootsy or Grandma Boots,
Aw.
and even she was one of those that she was Grandma Boots to everybody. Like, everyone
Mhm.
called her Grandma Boots, and if you knew her, you knew you could come to her house anytime, and she always had a meal at the ready. She was known for giving above and beyond what she should have. She where
Yeah.
people took advantage, right? People took advantage of her, and she really showed me what that was like, but even my mission trips wouldn't have happened without her.
Mhm.
When I remember talking to her about it, and essentially she agreed to match everything that I would raise.
That's
And so
wonderful.
anytime, if it cost $3,000 to do the trip, I would do things to raise the 1,500, and I always knew my grandma would meet me halfway.
Mhm.
And it really was because of her that I did these trips. And I think to this day, uh-oh, I'm getting emotional. Um, I think even some of my most recent, I don't wanna say, like, coming back to Jesus, I didn't, like, go far, but, like, just stepping into some of the stuff you and I are doing, Cherise, I think it in part is because of the prayers of my grandma.
Yeah.
I knew she always believed in me,
Mhm.
and I knew she always saw something in me,
Yeah.
in, like, a spiritual way, and she's since passed. She passed away a while back, but I still think of her, and I wonder if part of where I find myself today is because of her diligent prayers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
But to move forward from there, met Phil, and he's a wonderful guy, Christian and family, great family. And yes, so I would say that was like a good match, and I'm happily married. However, I think that there was several years there that were survival mode for
Mm,
us. Of just we got married, we started having babies right away, and in 5 years we had, or in 4 years we had 3 kids under four, and it
mhm,
was just like bam, bam, bam. And so those years were hard. We were going to church, we were taking our kids to church, and I would be in some Bible studies where I could take my kids, right? One of those Bible studies of
mhm,
like drop the kids off for an hour. But I didn't have like a daily rhythm because it was just so hard. It was so
mhm.
hard when the kids are little.
Yeah.
And so then maybe fast forward about probably a couple years ago, I really had a little bit of a come to Jesus within myself of being maybe lukewarm,
Mhm.
of like I believe and we have our family in church, but I know there's more here. And that's when I really started digging into more of a personal relationship and being more diligent with spiritual rhythms of, the quiet time and prayer and reading and studying and even learning deeper, like beyond, just reading the Bible, like using commentary and looking words up and really trying to dig in deeper.
Yeah. So I love that story and that journey. I think a lot of us find ourselves in that situation with young kids. Um,
Mm.
and I love that I call it a little quarter life crisis. When you come back to yourself and you're like, wait, who is
Yeah.
God? Who am I? Where am I? Who am I in God?
Where am I?
Where am I? Um, and so talk me through how you went from there to helping women find their purpose and how God birthed that in you, that passion.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try to keep this concise. I would say from a young age, as in junior high, high school, I just started noticing that I felt like I was a person that people would unload to
Mm,
and just bring stuff that they were going through. Yeah, and honestly, and I say that like carefully. I'm not trying to brag in saying that. I feel like it's like a grace that God gave me. I feel like it was a gift that
yeah.
God
There
put
are some
inside
people that
me.
there's some people, not me, but I mean, sometimes, but there's some people that people just open up to more naturally and seem to always, and I feel like that's what I'm hearing you say. Or is that right?
Yeah, so I remember noticing that at a young age. And even in high school, I started like a girls group. I forget what it was called, but I was like a junior and senior in high school and my group of girls were like 8th grade and freshmen. So I
Mm,
can even go all the way back to high school and see that I had this desire that was put in my heart to like invest in other
mhm,
women. And so move forward in college, I was a shepherd, which is like kind of the spiritual person on the hall.
mhm,
And so, yeah, it's not that I did a ton with that, but again, it's just another like nugget of like, well, of course, right? Like God always kind of put that on my heart. And then we go through those blurry years of child rearing, and I had a successful photography business that I was working 7 days a week on. And so when I got to this position that I could finally step back in certain ways from photography, I felt like it was just this coming back around to myself, kind of like you said, Cherise. And it was
mhm.
like, what happened? Where am I? Who am I? All of that. And very quickly, I already knew. It's like I already knew instinctively, like, God had already put on my heart to invest in other women. Not to say that I don't learn stuff from them too, because I do. That's the beauty of it, right? And so Sharice and I met, and I told her at this coffee date about this idea of life coaching and podcast. And quickly she came to me and was like, let's do this. And really, I have to credit you, Sharice, because because of you, it helped me take action
Mm,
more in intentionally. And so what I love is that as I kind of stepped back into that, sphere, it was an immediate like, and it is like when you discover your purpose, obviously it goes back to like these day-to-day ways of living your purpose, but when
Mhm.
you go down that path and keep trusting God with that path, it feels like an awakening and it feels like an expansion of
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah.
And that's like when you really know that you're on the right path because I don't tire of it. I love it. It makes me feel alive. It keeps me moving forward, right? Even on hard days and
Yeah.
when life is hard and all that. Like it's like the fuel behind it. And a lot of times that is like this cue
Mhm.
to you being on the right track.
I love that you said that. Sean and I are on a bit of a 90s movie kick, and we watched Patch Adams this week, which I hadn't
Oh,
seen since I was a little girl. But he starts out the movie starts out, he's in a mental hospital,
right?
and then he helps the people in the mental hospital, and then that's how he comes alive again. It's like
Yes,
and what a beautiful movie. I looked it up.
it
He's
is.
still alive. He's
Robin
based off
Williams?
no.
Oh,
There's a true no. This is okay, it's based off a true story. This guy
right. But
actually
he
is still
played it,
alive.
right? Robin Williams played
Robin
Patch
Williams
Adams.
Robin Williams did pass, but the person
He
that
did
Robin
pass away,
Williams
but he played.
portraying Mr. Patch Adams, still
Can we
alive.
take this part out?
Maybe not. I think it's kind of funny. So he's still alive, and it's just to show like uh we really do find our purpose when we're walking it with God and
Mhm.
helping and loving people and letting him shine through us. And I'm so glad that you and I got brought together because it was really, really a God thing. And through that, we kind of like linked arms. We
Yeah.
have lots of videos of us linking arms cutely, but um,
Yeah.
just us walking forward and finding ways to love others and be who God created us to be, which I think is just behind what we all
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Well, I have absolutely loved getting to sit down with you. I learned a lot about you. And we've been
Did
talking
you?
about yeah, there's some things in here that, like, it's fun to frame it all and see it the
Yeah.
way you play it out,
Or
and so
hear it at once,
hear it
all
all
at
at
once.
once. There's definitely bits I hadn't heard before, so this was a blessing to
Mhm.
me too. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to share anything on your heart that you've haven't gotten to share yet that you really want our listeners to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to encourage like the listeners, everybody's story is going to look wildly different and that's the point. And for me, in general, the story is of being a believer from a young age. And there's not necessarily a huge, shift of like when I didn't believe in God and now I do believe in God. But every story doesn't matter if you're somebody who has, this faithful journey from a young age or if you have this transformation, both are beautiful. And so my encouragement would be to just honor your story and be able to just look back and see where, God's hand was on certain things. There's things I haven't shared, how but some of what I did share, like I could look back and say, God had me on a short leash, like
Mhm,
I never veered very far. And the other thing of like, I know my grandma was praying for me
mhm,
because she did for everybody.
mhm.
Like I wasn't somebody special. So if I have a family member listening, she prayed for everybody. And that helps encourage me for the kind of legacy that I want to leave.
Mhm,
But yeah, I would just say, even though I have a story of always believing, it is newer to me to really try to help it go from my head to my heart.
mhm,
Not that I wasn't doing that in smaller ways. My heart has always been a part of it, but really digging into more of that relationship side rather than knowledge. And we're all bent a little differently. For
mhm,
me, I'm just created that I love learning and sometimes though that learning can get stuck in the head a little bit. And so if you're listening, a switch in me really was when I started to lean into those rhythms more. I know that we all live busy lives, but when I really dug into spending that quiet time with God and reading his word and giving him space to speak, I got to know him in a new way. And I think nowadays it can be easy to be a Christian that is just going to church and has the belief. And I'm not here to try to judge or condemn. It's just more of an encouragement that there really is a beautiful side. Like there's just much more to know about God and about how much he loves you and cares for you when you lean into that a little bit more.
I love that. And I love that we got to have this space today for you to share and just hear more about your heart, Brianna. We love
Thank you.
you, coming from me and all of our listeners. We love you. I love you. And I can't wait to keep on sharing more stories from women and purpose and just
Too.
telling more about God. So thank you for sharing your heart
Thank
today.
you.
And I wish we had more
Love
time
you,
because
friend.
it
I
would be
know.
so fun to just dig in more and learn more about you.
Well,
More,
I'm not
more.
going anywhere.
Yeah, that's thank goodness. But we hope that
I
you
don't
really
think so. Lord willing.
Lord willing. Uh, but for now, we really hope that you enjoyed this conversation today and that you're able to take it and just reflect on it and your own journey as well, and to see where God has been faithful in your story too. So thanks for joining us, and join us again next week for another inspiring story.
Thanks for listening in today, and we hope that you enjoyed today's episode.
Just remember, your story matters, and God is using it to create echoes way beyond what you can see.
If this episode encouraged you, please share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time, keep trusting God, leaning into his purpose, and allow your life to echo his love.